Good evening, everybody. Keith Engel here for TGI Sports Talks College Football Huddle. How's everybody doing tonight? Great to be here. Great to be live. And we've got a lot to talk about. Welcome, everybody, on Facebook, watching TGI Sports Talk tonight on either TGI Sports Talk, on Northeast Streaming Sports, on Let's Talk Sports. If you're watching us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you might be, welcome. Oh, by the way, you can also catch this show every Saturday at 9 a.m., the replay of the show on Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel. And you want to download that Roku channel because there's a lot of great programming on Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel all week long. So you want to make sure that you do that. And by the way, DDH, thumbs up to you, buddy. And what else we got here? Oh, what? And Let's Talk Sports, too. Let's not forget all the great programming on Let's Talk Sports with Tanner D and Nick Bodkins, Johnny Cruz, Scott Cote, all those guys. Great bunch of guys. Alan Perales. I don't want to leave anybody out, but Alex Simpson, who watches our shows. So watch those guys. And also a big shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Does some great stuff, and specifically a sports corner that he does with Smokin' Jim Frazier at 5:30 every Tuesday on WVP, 12:30 a.m. and 99.3 FM there in Pittsburgh. Check out Ralph's stuff. So, guys, we're gonna have Jim Beringer on about 7:30 for 20 minutes or a little bit longer, maybe, to talk about some of the top stories of the week. We got a lot to talk about. Lots happened last week. Obviously, affecting the playoff rankings. Top 8 stayed the same, but a lot of jockeying below there. A lot of big games, too. Oklahoma loses again in the last bedlam for God knows how long. Very sad that that's the case. Oh, Georgia handles Missouri, who is listen, they were a game team last week. Missouri only dropped a couple of spots in the playoff spot, but it'll be very tough for some schools. Ole Miss with a big win last week over Texas A&M, but they can't help themselves because they needed the Tigers of LSU to help them out. And watch out, guys. After we wrote them off, Bama's coming on. We'll go through some of these scores and some of these games from last week. Utah, Clemson bounced back after bad losses or bad streaks. So we'll get into some of that. And we'll talk again about the Michigan debacle. Now there's other teams that, if you listen to reports, there's other teams that have had the signals of Michigan last year. It's not to do about nothing. I keep telling you that. We'll get into, again, the new college football playoff pool. We'll get into this week's big games. We'll talk more about Jim Harbaugh and some of the news around the league. And again, we'll have Jim Beringer in about 7:30. I wanted to get Larry Sorensen from Wake Forest to talk some ACC, and his alma mater is also Michigan, and talk to him about that. But Larry is busy with a webinar tonight for his Pitch Logic software. So, by the way, if you're a parent or a coach, make sure you check out Pitch Logic. A baseball coach, a baseball parent, check out Pitch Logic because it's really good training system for youngsters and pitching. So check that out. Good evening, Dave Guyette. Good to have you with us. Another bad loss for Syracuse last week, by the way. It looks like a carbon copy of last year. They got away 4-0, and now they've lost their last, 5, I think. So it's not looking good for Dino Babers and Syracuse right now. Let's take a quick look at week 10 and the results of the top 25 games. Some interesting games. Listen, I loved Notre Dame last week, but Sam Hartman did not play well. Notre Dame came out and got blitzed by Clemson early in this game, and it wasn't as close as the final score, 31-23. Clemson, after losing 3 in a row, I think, was in danger of going under 500, and they come back and played a really good game after Dabo Sweeney went kind of off on a caller on his radio show the week before, last week, I guess. So They played a really good game. Klublik played much better, but Sam Hartman was not good. 2 interceptions, 148 yards. And now Notre Dame has probably blown any chance at any kind of decent bowl game. Certainly not a New Year's Day bowl game as they fall to 7-3. Ohio State beats Rutgers 35-16. This game closer than that score. Rutgers in the third quarter of this game was ahead 9-7 and going in for another touchdown when they had a bad turnover that Ohio State ran back for a touchdown, and they never looked back. That was a turning point of that game. Georgia had they had their hands full with a good Missouri team. They won 30-21 at home. Missouri was right in this game. Certainly, at least until late in the game, they didn't have much of a chance. They had some bad turnovers. The offense wasn't able to kind of fire on all cylinders the way they had previously against some of the teams with worse defenses than Georgia. But Georgia, to me, again, getting better. We talk about this a lot of times. Rick Sherlock, who's our resident Georgia fan, has talked about a lot that this team gets better and better. Beck is getting better and better. We're going to say the same thing about Bama, though, guys, and they're on a collision course right now for to meet in the SEC championship game, and it could be winning in for either one. Or if Bama were to win, there's scenarios out there where if Washington, Florida State, and either Michigan or Ohio State's undefeated, those 3 teams are in. If Texas wins the Big 12 with 1 loss and Bama beats Georgia, there's that scenario I've been talking about where there's a chance the SEC does not have anybody in the college playoff. We'll see. Elsewhere, Michigan, with everything blowing around that program, 41-13, they beat Purdue. Purdue's in the middle of this whole thing, complaining. All these coaches have thrown Jim Harbaugh on the bus. By the way, not one shred of evidence that Jim Harbaugh knew anything about what Stallion was doing. Again, whether you agree with me that sign stealing is much ado about nothing, or whether you think it's an egregious breach of the rules, right now there's no evidence linking this back to Harbaugh. So I'm not really sure how this is going to play out. Michigan had to respond to them by today. The NCAA had given them a notice of possible sanctions, which would probably be a lawsuit. A suspension of Jim Harbaugh, followed by lawsuits from Jim Harbaugh and Michigan, and maybe even the Big Ten. But we'll see what happens there. We'll talk more about that as we need to. We'll talk a little bit about it with Jim Behringer and get his thoughts. Florida State rolls over a bad Pittsburgh team 24-7. Washington goes to USC and puts them out of their misery 52-42. Another tremendous defensive showing, if you will, by USC. This team is just, they're done. I mean, they're out of the top 25 now. I take that back. I think, they're out of the top 25. Is Caleb Williams coming back? Oh, and by the way, Alex Grinch fired by Lincoln Riley and USC this week. Is that going to make much of a difference this year? Don't know. Might make a difference in their recruiting. With a new defensive coordinator about to come in there, whether it's whoever they have in the interim or a new hire in the offseason, it will help the recruiting on the defensive side of the football, I'm sure. Oregon gets some style points with a 63-19 victory over California. Texas gets a squeaker against a really good Kansas State team. Kansas State team lost a game. This team lost a couple of close games to ranked teams early. They're now 6-3, 4-2 in the Big 12. Big 12 is pretty close. We'll go around the conferences later, but it's going to be tight. Texas can still, with a 1 loss, if they win this conference, they can still make the playoff. They got to make it over a 1-loss Alabama team if Alabama wins the SEC. Alabama, speaking of which, played a 14th ranked LSU, beats them 42-28, tied at halftime. So they outscored them 21-7 in the second half. LSU is not going anywhere this year. They are 4-2 in the SEC. I know the Ole Miss fans were rooting for the Tigers in this game because this was their only path to the SEC championship game. Bama's not going to lose 2 games going out with a win over Ole Miss. This 1-game lead is really 2 games, and they've got Kentucky and they've got I can't remember where they have their last game, but they're not going to lose both these games. They're not going to lose either one of these games where they're playing. Alabama, much like I spoke about Georgia, getting better by the week, and I got to like this. It's not a classic Alabama team, but it's not a classic Georgia team either. I mentioned the last Bedlam, Oklahoma State, another team playing really well. They moved to 7-2. I had this team in the top 12 in the college football playoff. I think the official ranking they have might have been 14. Might have been 14. We'll get to that in a second. They didn't have them ranked quite as high as I did. And I want to make sure I have my rankings here so that I can compare that. I do. So I want to compare that when we do it. But they beat Oklahoma State in the last Bedlam. Again, number one story here to me, last Bedlam for a long time, but Oklahoma on its way to the SEC. We aren't going to see this 100-year-old rivalry for the foreseeable future. Dylan Gabriel was just okay in this game. Touchdown, interception, threw for a lot of yards. But Oklahoma State's been playing really good football recently. And this is a team that's still got a shot at the Big 12 championship game, especially now with Oklahoma having 2 conference losses. It's Oklahoma State and Texas, to me, in the driver's seat here in the Big 12, and we'll get there in a little bit. Ole Miss, as I mentioned, with an exciting win over Texas A&M, 38-25 at home. Late interception by Ole Miss as A&M was driving for potentially the tying or winning points. Nice interception in this game to seal it for the Rebels. Penn State, as they get warmed up for Michigan this week, and the biggest game of the week coming up, a week with some big games that we'll get to in a little bit as well. They beat up on Maryland, who's a big disappointment, really. 2-4 in the Big Ten. They got the little baby Tua there, and he really has not performed up to what we would have thought would happen. Maryland was a dark horse a bit in the Big Ten, not probably to win it, but to be a little bit more competitive than they've been this year. Probably some changes on the horizon in Maryland, I would think. Louisville rebounds, gets to 5-1 in the ACC, probably on a collision course with Florida State to meet in the ACC championship game. We'll see how that goes. They went 34-3 over a previously on a decent streak, Virginia Tech. Oregon State rebounds from a bad loss. Not a bad loss. Arizona is not a bad team. So they beat Colorado 26-19. Colorado now 4-5 for those who are counting, 1-5 in the Pac-12. For those of you who are so excited when they're 3-0, good job by Deion. He's done a really good job. This team probably will be 6-6. Probably will make a bowl game. Although it's not quite as 5-7 is a little more in play than it was when I predicted 6-6 at the beginning of the season. It's still a good job, but it's now with the benefit of hindsight and perspective, or perception, I should say. These Colorado fans are disappointed. Tennessee rolls over UConn. UConn goes down for a big payday and gets their hats handed to them, 59-3. Utah 55-3 over Arizona State to rebound from that bad loss to Oregon. Arizona playing really good football in the Pac-12. Jed Finch doing a great job, former quarterback coach for the Patriots. They could probably use him back. They win 27-10 over UCLA. This is a team that's playing really good football in the Pac-12. Iowa State loses to Kansas. Kansas with a pretty good jump in the rankings this week, but unlikely to have any way to get to the Big 12 championship game or compete for a playoff spot. Obviously, Tulane looking to solidify a spot in the New Year's Day Bowl with the group of 5 pick. They went 13-10 on the road at East Carolina. East Carolina is not very good this year with only 1 win. That's too close for Tulane. But they were helped with Air Force, previously undefeated at 8-0, loses to Army, who's had a tough season this year, but they rebounded on the road in Colorado and really dismantled Air Force 23-3. There's your top 25. See what we got here. John DeLon is with us. Good evening, John. Do I condone cheating, or did you have a chat with your pastor? Do I still condone cheating? I want to be clear on this, John, and I don't want to debate it the entire show again. We're going to have Jim Beringer on from FullPressHockey.com and Let's Talk Sports, so who does a lot of college football as well as the hockey, and we'll ask him his opinion. I'm not saying my opinion is popular. I want to go out on, and I want to make sure I'm on the record. I do not condone cheating. I say everybody does it, John. Now, you know, and I'm sure you're going to poo-poo this, just like the Astros were stealing signs in baseball, they weren't the only ones doing it. I said last week that I guarantee you Michigan's not the only ones doing this. And there's a report now that a former, now I understand he wants to be anonymous, so it leaves a little room for doubt, that a former Big Ten employee of a university who was charged with stealing signs was charged with stealing Michigan signs and giving them to certain teams in the Big Ten in 2022. Now, you'll tell me it's probably subterfuge that Michigan's, planting these stories to try to, lessen the blow to them. I don't think it's going to lessen the blow. And I don't condone cheating, to answer your question again. I say everybody's doing it. And I know I don't have any definitive proof for that, and I will be the first to admit that. But again, there's also, by the way, no evidence that Jim Harbaugh knew anything about what this potentially rogue assistant was doing. So again, there's that. Deion isn't so great that he doesn't have when he doesn't have 4 and 5 star players versus 0. I agree. Listen, those 3 wins, the 3 wins that he had, and again, I'm not disparaging Deion. You guys, I don't, whether your agenda's to disparage Deion or not, I think Deion has done a very good job at Colorado this year. When he was 3-0, I did not think that team was going, 10-2 or 9-3. I said when they were 3-0, the same thing that I said before the season. 6-6 would be an exceptional season. 6-6 would still be exceptional because 5-7 might be even more realistic at this point. But those 3 wins at the beginning of the year aren't looking so great now. TCU is not a good football team. We have since found out. Nebraska, we know what their situation is. And then they beat a bad Colorado State team. So, but Deion's done a good job. I mean, let's not forget that. Rick Sherlock, Charlie Beekman agrees with me. Beeks, I always liked Beeks. I always said Beeks was a smart guy. Worked with him today. He thinks it's BS. See, there's one guy that agrees with me. We'll see what Jim Beringer has to say. I really wanted to find out what Larry Sorensen thought. And Rick, I had tried to get Larry on today. Probably next week. Larry had a webinar for his Pitch Logic software, I guess we'll call it, which is for coaches and baseball parents. You guys trying to get pitchers trained. This is a great piece of training material. So take a look at Pitch Logic, and we'll let Larry pitch it for himself next week. But again, I want to get Larry's opinion on this as well. Larry's a Michigan alum. I don't know if he'd stick up. Larry's a pretty, level-headed guy too. I don't think he'd just stick up for his school, former school anyway. What else did we want to talk about as far as stuff in the news? We talked about Michigan and that. Listen, we know now that Stalions. Here's what we know about the Michigan situation. Stallion resigned. Everybody else is denying they knew anything about what he was doing. No evidence tying Harbaugh back to this, but the NCAA has let Michigan know that they're being investigated and likely going to set down some kind of punishment. And the Michigan had till today to respond, which they most likely did, or were going to do. And right now, it looks like suspension of some kind for Harbaugh will be in the offing, whether that's this year or next year, who knows. But it's pretty much guaranteed that when the suspension comes to place, now the courts will get involved as well, because there will be lawsuits by Harbaugh, lawsuits by Michigan, who knows who else. And now comes the allegations that an unknown employee of another Big Ten university who was charged with stealing signs or learning signs, whatever you want to say, had supplied the signs for Michigan to several schools in the Big Ten. The names I heard were Purdue, OSU, maybe. So we'll see. I don't know. Again, this was bound to happen. So Connor was roaming the sidelines with a stack of printed computer paper thicker than War and Peace, talking to both coordinators for 2.5 years. But there is absolutely, but no, the coordinators, again, there's nothing right now. I haven't seen evidence that the rest of the Michigan coaching staff was involved. And again, that's not necessarily I'm not saying they weren't. To me, it's unlikely that Jim Harbaugh didn't know about this. I'll be clear. I'm sure Jim Harbaugh did know about this. Again, my opinion is, who cares? Again, it's a lot of noise that is, in my mind, disrupting a very good NCAA season. I hate it. Bye. You don't butt it. I don't think you butt it or buy it. Listen, I'm not saying these guys didn't know. I'm just saying there is no evidence. Again, John, I will use the same argument I used last week. The same thing that tells me, common sense says Jim Hart didn't invite in, or Connor Stallion did not invent sign stealing, right? So common sense says there's other people doing this. Common sense says that if Connor Stallion's supplying this data, around the Michigan staff, somebody knows about it, most likely Jim Harbaugh. Common sense says he knows. I agree. That's not my argument. Nor do I condone the cheating. I think it's BS. I think everybody does it. That's it. And further to the point, but if you buy, you got the T and the Y a problem there tonight, John. I have it a lot. Don't worry about it. Babe in the Woods routine. I have some. I don't buy it. Again, I don't buy his. I'm not buying what Jim Harbaugh's selling there. I say Jim Harbaugh's a good football coach. That's all I've ever said. I didn't say he was a stellar human being. I'll tell you the same thing about Bill Parcells, who coached my team, who coached the Giants, who coached not my team. The Patriots are my team. The Giants, the Jets, and did well everywhere. Great coach, horrible person. I think Jim Harbaugh is probably that type of guy. But he's being vilified. I think he's being vilified because people don't want him to succeed. John, you haven't yet commented on the reports of Michigan's signs being stolen by another Big Ten university and given to some other schools within the league. I mean, if I'm to believe one, why would I not think something's going on the other end? I don't know if I was clear or not. I don't condone it. I just say it's common sense. There's pics of Connor Tate talking to, again, I'm saying, okay, I'm not disputing that they're again, not that doesn't tie back to Harbaugh for evidence, but again, you'd have to be a fool, and I'm not a fool, to think Harbaugh didn't know. That's not my argument. It's never been my argument whether they did it and whether Harbaugh knew. That's never been my argument. My argument's always been, we're just, trying to keep up with the Joneses. I need to see proof. Well, supposedly the proof is there, but the guy wants to be anonymous. So people are not obviously going to buy this. Again, proof, not proof. Again, my point is not whether they did it or didn't do it. I mean, again, all you need to know about the campaign that's being waged against Michigan and Harbaugh is look at the charges from the offseason of the COVID recruiting violations. They really amounted to nothing. They were really not major infractions. He gets suspended because he had a little problem telling the truth to the investigators. But now we have this. He's probably out of here. Whether he's suspended, whether he leaves of his own volition. And I really believe, I thought this for a while. I thought this would happen the last cycle. I know that he flirted, well, supposedly he flirted with the Vikings, but a lot of that was his own PR machine, trying to get him a better contract at Michigan. We know that. I will tell you right now that I would be shocked if Jim Harbaugh was not coaching in the NFL. And quite likely the Vegas Raiders next year would be my guess. What did my dad tell you? Wrongs don't make a right. I'm not really. Well, first of all, again, if you know the signs, you still have to stop them. And I know it's easier if you know where the ball's going, the play's going, blah, blah, blah. But again, if they've got my signs, and by the way, why doesn't the NCAA fix this whole problem? Just put the freaking technology in the helmets and we won't have this nonsense going on. Again. Two. Or many wrongs don't make a right. I don't disagree. Listen, part of this is me, trying to be on the opposite side of the story a little bit. But I do believe, again, I'll compare this to the Astros in 2017. I don't think it was that big a deal. I just don't. Sign stealing, at least in baseball, has been going on as long as the game has been played. Did they take it to another level? Yeah. But the Yankees want to cry about getting beat by the Astros, and I'm not going to turn this into a baseball story from 6 years ago, but the Yankees scored about 3 runs in that entire series. That isn't because the Astros had their signs. Consider starting a petition to the NCAA or Big Ten to suspend Jim and both coordinators for the rest of the regular season. Well, why not the whole season? So that would make him eligible for the Big Ten championship game. You're okay with that? And any bowl or playoff game, you would have Jim coach. I just don't know. I'm sure a suspension is coming here. I'm positive. Based on everything I read, based on everything I hear, a suspension is coming. And what the question is going to be whether there's an injunction that allows him to coach while his lawsuit is then heard, because it's coming too. Guarantee you there will be legal action that will follow this. That's why I hate the story has come out and why it should not have been blown up the way that it has been. because it's going to take the shine off of a very interesting college football season. I think. What you got here? Come on. Oh, pushing that. Guess the Yankees just condone cheating. No, the Yankees, the real Yankees, did not condone cheating. They've been crying about it ever since. And again, I never said I condone cheating. I said it does. I don't think it amounts to a hill of beans. Still wondering how only the head coach got fired and no assistants in the players' abuse. By the way, Blair, what's the Northwestern coach's name? We'll have Jim Harbaugh joining us here, or Jim Harbaugh. We'll have Jim Harbaugh joining us just a few minutes. That would be we'd have a good show then, wouldn't we? No, we'll have Jim Behringer join us in just a few minutes, by the way. Not that we don't love Jim. I should have introduced him as Jim Harbaugh. That'd be awesome. I see him popping in. Let me find out the answer to my question. That I'll get Jim in here, and we'll bring him in, and we'll get his feelings on this topic, because obviously you guys hate mine. David Braun couldn't get there. I was thinking Blair. I don't know why. But without further ado, let's bring in Mr. Jim Behringer from Let's Talk Sports and FullPressHockey.com. How are you, Jim?
What's going on, Keith? How are you?
Good to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Lots going on. I want to, before we jump into game action,
right?
I've had this running issue with myself and some of my fandom here about the Michigan and Jim Harbaugh situation.
I don't think it's a big deal, to be honest. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Thank you. See, I say that, and I'm accused of condoning cheating. I don't condone cheating.
I don't condone cheating, but everybody else in the league does it.
Thank you. We don't have proof. Unfortunately. John DeLon says we don't have proof that everybody does it. Common sense tells me.
Apparently somebody has proof, because think it was Pete Thamel or one of Dan Wetzel wrote on Twitter today. X said that I was doing it too.
Well, there's a report that Michigan's got. There's an unnamed former Big Ten employee who's given Michigan texts and video evidence that he was charged with stealing their signs at Michigan for other Big Ten schools. So again, do I have proof that this goes on everywhere? No, but I don't think that Connor Stallion or Jim Harbaugh invented sign stealing in the last 2 years. I just don't.
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think it's been going on for a while. So, and I think, it was Purdue who broke the rules. Purdue's the other one that was doing it. So, I mean, look, I think that
it. By the way, they were one of the loudest guys to speak up against Harbaugh.
Right, but they're the ones that are breaking the rules too, and apparently Ohio State, Rutgers, and everybody else is doing it. My point is, this is my point. If they were so good, they would have won the national championship last year instead of getting blitzkrieged by TCU in the semifinals.
Great point. Let's see. Let me see. I got a couple comments we should get here, because John, I can't leave John out. Honestly, don't care if Jim coaches or not, because he said he ought to be suspended for the.
He's not getting suspended.
He's still going to coach, because he's going to put a law. There's going to be lawsuits and injunctions. Right. Everything else, and he's going to coach the rest of this year and probably be gone. That's probably what's going to happen.
Look, there's not, and even if everything he does get suspended, they appeal. You know what the appeal is going to wait till? After the playoffs over.
You're gonna. Sean's having trouble typing tonight, so apparently he's going to type something.
Yeah, that's right, baby. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. I had that written down to congratulate you Sunday, and then I didn't see it, so I didn't write it down again tonight. Congratulations on your hockey.
That's right, baby. That's right.
How many years in a row?
Oh, that's 3. That's now 3 in a row.
3 in a row. That's what Georgia's going for.
3 in a row, baby. That's it. Well, that's how we do it.
So let's. So far, we have.
And real quick to end this discussion with Jim Harbaugh and everything, right? Look, I ended it with the TCU point. They still got to win the games. it's not like, oh, sign stealing's leading to winning them more games. I think a lot of people want Jim Harbaugh out of Michigan. I don't think he gets along with the athletic director there. They're at odds. And if he leaves, it's just going to be another scenario like we saw in USC where Pete Carroll left before all this stuff hit the fan and he went to the NFL. And I don't believe this is going to affect anything with the NFL because I think he'll go. It just depends where. But again, it's all allegations right now because I just don't think people like Jim Harbaugh.
I made a prediction here about 10 minutes ago. I think Jim Harbaugh's next stop in the NFL opened up this week. He'll be the next head coach of the former Oakland Raiders.
That's a pretty good fit. I would like that fit.
That's a great fit organization-wise and personality-wise. Let's see what Chad's got here. Sounds like these universities that want to fire their coaches are being accused of sign stealing. Interesting. Come on, Chad. So there's a conspiracy by the universities to throw their own coaches under the bus.
Well, we know Michigan doesn't, like the AD doesn't get along with Jim Harbaugh. I mean, that goes back for years now.
Well, yeah, and we don't know if there was a contract that was pulled, a contract offer that was pulled. Again, there's no evidence of that, but again, I need evidence. But I need evidence of these other schools have stolen Michigan.
Look, for everything that goes on, right? I want to see all the facts before I'm going to make conclusions.
Right. And by the way, again, I just think it's much ado about nothing. And when everybody does the same stuff, I said the same thing in New England. I said the same thing about Deflategate.
It doesn't matter.
Everybody manipulates signals. The good teams.
Who cares?
Yeah,
who cares, man? Like it.
If you're not
again, my point before all this. If they were that good at it, they should have won the national championship last year.
Yeah. What was the game? What was the score of that TCU game?
Didn't they get shut out?
They didn't score many points. They scored any.
Yes.
And they didn't do a good job of stopping TCU. Maybe they change your signals. Maybe that's the key. That's what I keep saying. Maybe you don't put up the same. I don't want to say giraffe again because John's going to call me a communist. But you don't put up the same giraffe sign for the same play every time.
Right, exactly. And like the NFL changes signals all the time. They change it week to week.
Yeah. And how about the NCAA gets out of the dark ages and puts the radio equipment in the helmets? And we don't.
Right. Yeah, right. No one's stealing signs.
Oh, God.
Who cares?
Anyway, speaking of three-peats, let's get into the college football scene, the landscape today. I think it's more likely right now than ever that Georgia will win their third straight national championship. There's a couple of roadblocks still.
There's a couple of big roadblocks still.
Called Bama because we all wrote Bama off early, but they've gotten better and better and better.
Jalen Milroe looks really, really good. He runs the ball like this. Alabama plays defense like they're doing. Look out. I mean, just look out for Bama. They could upset Georgia in the SEC title game. I mean, look. They don't have Brock Bowers. He's the biggest cheat code in NCAA right now. It's like having Travis Kelce.
He is,
and they're still winning.
He is running a practice though, so that when they get him back, that's going to be like
right. That's what I'm saying. Again, Bama's got to run the table even to have a shot at this thing. Like they even have a shot at this thing. They got to win the SEC title.
Well, they're not going to lose in the regular season. They got Kentucky and.
Then they play like some nobody school, and then they have to play Auburn. So right. Yeah.
So Ole Miss, who was rooting for LSU last week, their only chance to get in, I think, was if LSU beat Alabama.
Didn't happen, and Lane Kiffin's going to lay another egg in Georgia this week. So,
what video game references? Well, Jim's a young guy, he's out there.
Yeah, I still play video games. Come on now.
I got my Pong going on. That's all I got.
But no, seriously, Keith. All seriousness aside, like all kidding aside. Lane Kiffin laid an egg against Alabama, and that was the week that they could have knocked Alabama out of it, had the signature win. I don't think it's coming this week against Georgia in Georgia.
No, that's one of the big games this weekend, but I think you're right. I don't think Georgia's done. Listen, good job by Georgia. Everybody talked about their schedule being weak. It turns out that schedule's not as bad as it looked in the beginning.
No, and absolutely not.
Long. That's a good Missouri team they beat last week.
Oh, very good Missouri team. And they kept it close where they only dropped a couple of spots in the rankings in the college football eyes. I mean, that's a good thing. So, and it helps Georgia on their schedule and their resume. And again, they're inconsistently consistent when it comes to the college football playoff committee. One school you go off resume, one school you go off eye test, this signature. Doesn't matter. All of it's going to work out. Come December 3rd, 4th, whatever day it is, Sunday, all of it's going to work out.
To John's credit, he did not. He's a an SEC
elitist. Yeah, I know.
Well, I know he didn't write Bam off. He didn't. Because Nick Saban, by the way, is the greatest college football coach of all time. I didn't write him off either, but I did not think they were going to.
The way they were playing, I didn't think this was this possible. I thought maybe a couple losses this year. The way they played early on. But again, early on doesn't mean what you can do later on in the season. Remember, how many years do we say, USC isn't that great, and then they just turned it on at the end of the year?
I will tell you something that there's at least one scenario where no SEC, and this will blow John's brain right up. There is at least one scenario where no SEC team gets in the playoff. If Washington, Florida State, and Ohio State or Michigan stay undefeated, and Texas wins the Big 12 with one loss, and Bama beats Georgia, it's possible no SEC team goes to the playoff.
That's a big if, because that all depends on that Michigan-Ohio State game and how close that game is.
Well, if they're undefeated, you can't take a one-loss team over an undefeated team.
Yeah, but Michigan and Ohio State aren't going to be undefeated. One of them's going to have one loss.
No, I'm saying only one of those teams is going. Washington's going. Florida State's going. If they're undefeated, they're going.
Right.
Either Michigan or Ohio State's going in undefeated.
Right.
And the other scenario is Texas wins the Big 12 with one loss. Then Bama beats Georgia. Texas had already beaten.
You know. Here's the thing. Like, I was thinking about that. I'm like, that's the chaos theory where Texas could get in. I don't know if they put Texas in over Alabama if Alabama runs the table.
Haven't beaten Alabama.
It doesn't matter. I seen it way too many times in the past where Penn State beat Ohio State. Somehow Ohio State got in the playoff.
Is that noted lover of giraffes? Yes.
That's what he said. Yes, it was.
Anyway, it's going to be very interesting
because for me, look, I look at it, right? I look at this and they talk about big wins and all this stuff. Notre Dame, the win by Ohio State over Notre Dame looks worse and worse each week. Like, they have 3 losses and didn't look great this past weekend. Like, you kind of could throw that one out the window.
For Ohio State?
Yeah.
Well, look, an undefeated Big Ten team, no matter what their record, they're
I know, exactly. Well, Michigan's got their first big game, period.
Again, I agree. And on the road, but it's again.
James Franklin lays an egg also.
Who cannot beat Michigan or Ohio State. He's only got, I think.
He beat them once. I think he beat Ohio State once.
And I think he's beat Michigan twice.
Right.
I think. So they're 3-17 against these two teams.
Right. And look, if you're going to go in the same game plan as you did against Ohio State, you're losing.
Yeah, that was not a good effort, by the way. And
no.
I'm not sure. Listen, I think Penn State will be in this game. I think they will be too, but they got to let Allard pass the ball. I mean, if they're going to do what they did, run, pass, I mean, you're going to be behind the sticks the whole game, and Michigan's defense is really good. This is a good weekend for football. I mean, we got 4 games with ranked opponents. Michigan and Penn State we just talked about. We talked a little bit about Ole Miss and going to Georgia again. Lane Kiffin and Kirby Smart, it's a miss. I like Lane Kiffin.
It's a mismatch. Kirby Smart and Georgia is going to blow the doors off of them.
It's a mismatch. You got Tennessee going to Missouri.
That's going to be a fun game.
That should be a fun game. I think there'll be a lot of points scored in that game.
That should be a high-scoring game. Again, coming off an emotional game for Missouri. Can they bounce back, come back, play at home against a good Tennessee team? We'll see.
And you got Utah going to Washington. Utah getting dismantled by Oregon a couple of weeks ago. Nice win last week, coming back. Washington has been a little up and down since that Oregon game.
I mean, it all depends, though. Like, if they're going to be the Washington team that played against Arizona State and Stanford, Utah has a chance. If they're going to be the team that beat USC and beat Oregon and beat the snot out of everybody else, Utah's in for a long day.
I feel bad for the Utah defense. It's a good defense, and the offense just is not championship caliber.
No Cam Rising. That really hurts.
Yeah. Did they redshirt him? Is he coming back next year, or he can come back next year?
I think he might be able to come back next year.
I know no SEC team in the playoffs would make you yank. It wouldn't. You think I hate the SEC? I don't. I mean, it's good for football when Alabama and Georgia are good. So I'm happy when they're good. I'm just like, it's okay if we get somebody new, but I'm not rooting for it.
No, because everybody wants to watch Georgia and Alabama. That's the problem.
And I'm not holding my breath on that one, John, because look, I still think Oklahoma State might win the Big 12, by the way. Just saying.
I still think Oklahoma State could win the Big 12, too.
I had them moving up to 12 in my own football playoff ranking. The official rankings have them up to 15. They had the biggest jump of anybody this week, up 7 spots.
I think, what are they? I think they're around 15 in the AP, too, right?
They are 15 in the AP poll, too. Yep.
Yeah, so, all right, so pretty consistent there.
I mean, look, there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I got to count Penn State until they lose this week. You got 9 teams that realistically, I think, can get into the playoffs still.
Right. Legit shot.
This week we'll solve some of that probably because I think if Michigan or Penn State, whichever team loses, I think is out.
Oh, 100%. Well, I mean, Michigan technically is still alive because they could force a 3-way tie, right?
They could, but I think it'll be easy for the playoff people to skip a 1-loss team there and take a 1-loss SEC team.
No, 100%. No, 100%.
Or even 2 of them. If Bama were to beat Georgia.
Oh, yeah. Then they're both getting in. Oh, 100% they're both getting in.
There you go, John. I just gave you a scenario where 2 SEC teams could get in. What's tricky?
And everybody else is only getting 1 team.
Here's a good question for you, Jim.
Yes.
And this comes up on our show a lot. Do you think Notre Dame's issue is the quarterback or coaching? John's he's pulling. Sorry, Rick says he's pulling a Carlos and he's saying coaching.
I think it's a combination of both. Marcus Freeman just doesn't have this. Last week that team wasn't even prepared to play the game until the second half of the game. Like that's on the coach. That's on the coach for not getting the players ready for that game. Like, that's 100% on the coach. You know, there's certain games this year that you looked at the quarterback for Notre Dame and said, well, he's got issues against this team, because they played him. He came from the ACC. I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, Duke, Wake, and Louisville were tough games. Throw in USC, but USC's defense is not, you know, the defense that, well, they're not even a defense, period.
And this Clemson secondary was decimated last week.
Yeah, so I don't understand how you're not throwing a ball. Like, Sam Hartman's got a great arm. But again, this is my point at the beginning of the year. Notre Dame played nobody, and it put up all these points. So what? You beat the crap out of Navy and all these other teams. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Because when you played against Ohio State and Duke and Louisville and USC, Clemson, like this schedule, you got punched in the mouth.
I'm going to cop out a little bit on this question, Rick, and tell you that I think it's a combination of coaching and a quarterback. Because
I think so.
It's the scheme that they're running on offense. They don't try to run the ball enough.
No. And they have a great running back.
I mean, Hartman's a good quarterback, but he's not a guy who can carry you with his arm forever. I mean, he saw that at Wake Forest. He did put up great numbers, but yes, as Jim said, they'd run into good competition and they would stop that team.
Right.
Yeah, so you got to be able to run the football. Even Wake Forest did run the ball a little bit, actually. Better than Notre Dame did.
Oh, 100%.
John DeLon by the way, Oregon is going to win the Pac-12. It's possible.
It's possible. We're
looking probably at a rematch in the Pac-12 championship game.
It all depends. It all depends on the rest of the season.
If they go and they beat Oregon, if they both stay, Washington and Oregon goes in there with 1 loss and wins, and Oregon's winning the Pac-12, and maybe they get a bid.
Maybe
to the tournament. Well, we'll call it a tournament next year. In John's mind, the participation trophy tournament.
What is this?
Maybe Jimbo will be the Irish quarterbacks coach after damn who bleeped games. Listen, big news, by the way, John, DeLon, and Jim, I'll bring this to you. We talked about this a lot, whether Alex Grinch would get fired after the season, and he gets fired after last week's game. I think this is a best move Lincoln Riley could have made.
It was 8 weeks too late.
Well, yes, and it's probably already heard he's recruiting for next year, having Alex Grinch as a coordinator as long as he did, as you said. But they needed a change of direction there, and as you said, it should have been earlier. But finally, Lincoln Riley wakes up. Probably should have never brought him with him from Oklahoma.
Well, that defense. I mean, Lincoln Riley was known for great offense at Oklahoma. Oklahoma couldn't stop the ball. Now under Brent Venables, they have a good defense.
They had a great defense.
USC, look, I feel bad for Caleb Williams. This guy is an offensive machine. They have weapons there. They just can't stop anybody.
Yeah, and he's starting to get beat up a little bit too, I think. And the talk is stopped about him coming back next year.
No, he's going to the NFL.
If you notice early in the year, this USC was riding high, and maybe I'll be going for back-to-back championships and blah blah, some trophies, and we haven't heard any of that in the last month.
USC couldn't stop anybody last year. They got demolished by Utah twice and two times last year. Once in a Pac-12 championship on national television. Like USC's defense needed to improve. They should have made the switch after the Colorado game, but they didn't do it because they almost lost to Colorado.
They should have lost to Colorado.
How about Arizona? Yo, let's give some love. How about Arizona?
Arizona's playing really good football. Jed Finch was a former Patriot quarterback coach. He was on the firing block here. They'd had 2 really poor years, his first 2 years there. They've come out of nowhere this year. Nobody really gave them much talk before the season. They played, especially at home, they're playing really, really well. I think they're 4-2 in the conference.
Yes, they are.
And who they got this week? They got
they have Colorado.
Right. Colorado. That'll be an interesting game. I think Arizona will beat them.
I think Arizona goes there and wins.
When we talked about Colorado last time you were on, and I still had them 6-6 or 7.
Yes, yeah. It's like, wait.
I had this as a win. I don't anymore.
I don't have this as a win anymore. There were some. Look, let's be honest. There were some games they probably should have won and didn't.
Who's Sean Spencer? Good evening, Sean. Noah. I'll mess that name up. Help me out.
Fifida? I don't even know.
I don't even know the name. Colorado. Oh, he might be Arizona. Maybe he's Arizona.
That was the Arizona quarterback.
Jed Finch is a quarterback whisperer. I'm telling you, I'm glad they gave him another year because he's a really good coach.
He's a really good coach. They're playing really well right now. And look, again, the Pac-12, just a deep conference.
Yeah, there you go. Arizona quarterback. Thank you. I didn't recognize the name because Arizona nowhere.
They really have. I mean, that conference is so deep right now, right? You look at that standings, right? Washington, Oregon, they're right there. Arizona's 4-2 in the conference. Mm-hmm. USC's going to be 5-3 this week. If Arizona wins and say Oregon State wins, I mean, man,
it's funny. Just so we talked about, or I talked about, I'm sure we did when you've been on. The Pac-12's problem was they were going to cannibalize.
Exactly, but it's great football.
Yeah, it is good football, and as much as the SEC people don't like it, it's good football. And if you can stay up late on a Saturday, you can see some really good football teams.
And then you go to the Big 12, right? I mean, like Texas, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Oklahoma, Kansas State. I mean, again, great conference. Again, cannibalizing each other, but the games have been really good. I mean, Bedlam was great last week.
Are we looking at a rematch? Yes, I think you are looking.
I think so too. I think there's just a couple of more tests for Washington to get there. I mean, you still got to go to Corvallis and play Oregon State. That's not an easy game on the road. You still got Apple Cup. They should beat Washington State. But I mean, if you get by Utah and you get by Oregon State, then I don't really see an issue there.
You see a scenario where at the end of the year, I guess there can't be where Oregon. There was a lot of talk that Oregon may be rated above
Well, not now.
In these early polls. It won't matter because it's going to play itself out. There's no way that they're going to end up with one loss and no losses. One of them either is going to be one and I mean, if it's 1-1, then Oregon is going to be ahead of them. That's for sure.
Right, Oregon will be, exactly.
If it's an Oregon victory, anyway. So I don't know.
Well, this is where the debate came in on Tuesday night, where Greg McElroy and like he was getting heated week 2. Joey and Booger just like come and because they were saying the same thing. Everything's just going to play itself out. But he was bringing up the point. It's like, well, 6 through 8, really, we need to talk about who the best one-loss team is. And if we're talking about resume, like this is where the whole argument resume eye test, because Texas probably has the best win of anybody on the one-loss teams, but they're not ahead of Oregon because Oregon's loss to Washington was so close. So they're going to keep Oregon high.
Right.
And you can make the argument that Texas is the best one-loss team right now.
If it comes down to those 3 one-loss teams, that'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. But
again, that assumes that Texas stays one loss.
Well, so I'm assuming Oregon. That would assume that Oregon goes on and wins the Pac-12.
Right, and Alabama wins the SEC.
But they're getting in if they win the SEC. We said
100. Yeah.
That brings another scenario again. I guess, does Oregon get in as one loss if they win the Pac-12 with one loss? And Alabama beats Georgia and has one loss, and those other 3 teams.
Yeah, can we just get a +1 this year? Like, can we just get a play in this year, please?
No, John DeLong's head will explode because that's all participation. Oregon is better than Texas.
Oregon's played nobody. Like that was Greg's point, and it's my point. They haven't played anybody.
The one good team they played, they lost to.
Right, and that's because Dan Lanning's an idiot.
Well, I still think the last 4th down go was okay. I'd have done that too. Play to win the game. If you get the first down, the game's over.
Right. That one I don't have a problem with. It was the other ones that you're in the red zone and you don't kick field goals.
The one at the half was stupid.
That was dumb. That was stupid.
And the second one, I will agree. He probably should have kicked it. But I'm okay with him going for it at the end of the game there. End of
the game, I don't have a problem with it. You're going for the win. It's like Kansas State against Texas. I don't have a problem with you going for it in overtime, but you better come up with a better play than that.
He's getting killed, whatever he does there. If he doesn't get the first down, loses, he's getting killed. If he punts it and they lose, he gets killed. So he can't win.
Who? Dan Lanning? Or are we talking about the guy at Kansas State?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was still talking about Lanning. He's going to get killed anyway.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the guy at Kansas State this past weekend in overtime. Like, I'm okay going for it, but you got to better come up with a better play than what you came up with, or just go kick the field goal.
Yeah, I agree. And Sean, I agree.
I mean,
team playoff, but John is going to tell us how it's a participation trophy thing now. So,
but the problem is this year you actually have legit 12 good enough teams that their records are actually good enough. Like the last couple of years, some of the guys in the 12 spot, 3 losses. Do they really belong here? Like this and that. Like now, you legitimately have 12 good teams that have good records.
Well, yeah, the worst. I mean, you're going to get a group of 5 team in there. Tulane would be in there most likely.
Right, Tulane will be in there.
The rest are all going to be power conference.
Right,
like all the 11 others. So
except there'll be no Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre Dame would be out. Because
they stink.
USC would be out.
Well, that's no surprise there.
It's interesting. Who would be the 12th? Tulane would be in.
Yeah, automatically because they're the highest of the.
If we go by the, so it'd be Ohio State, Georgia, let's say, Florida State.
Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and Florida State would be the get the buys.
Texas. No, I'm
Texas.
looking.
Texas would play Alabama. I think I was seeing it the other night. They would have a rematch.
Interesting. So Tulane gets in at number 6. So that leaves 6 more spots. You'd have Oregon. You'd have Texas. Texas I got winning. You got Alabama, Ole Miss, Penn State, maybe Louisville.
I think I saw they might have put Oregon State in there or something, or Louisville, one of those teams.
You'd have to drop Ole Miss, you'd have to drop Penn State, you'd have to drop Louisville or Oregon State to for Tulane to get in.
Exactly.
They're going to get an automatic bid. So,
I mean, it'd be interesting.
It would be. I'm upset Air Force lost last week to Army because their Air Force.
Dude, Army just came out of nowhere and just demolished them.
Air Force was having a great year this year. They were looking at a potential New Year's Day bowl.
And now it's flushed down the toilet.
Here we go. 9-3 teams in the playoff for the win. That won't be 9-3 teams, John. Where? Tell me what 9-3 team would be in a playoff this year.
None.
Not a one.
Not a one.
You'd have all unbeaten, maybe a couple 2-loss teams. Maybe. You wouldn't have
most
teams.
Most would. There might be one team that has 3 losses. Maybe
it would have.
It might be either Ole Miss or Penn State.
I see. I'm not putting those teams in there though. See, John's assuming that 9-3 teams will get in. And I think more years than not, the worst teams are going to have 2 losses.
All right. I got a notebook. Now I'm going to write this down because I actually want to play this out in my head. I actually want to write this down now because I can't do it. I can't do it in my head right now. All right. Let's take a look at this. All right.
What happens every damn year? John, I can't see it happening every year.
So Georgia.
Years.
Actually, I think somebody pulled it up. 12-team playoff this year.
Yeah,
but
they do
it. But it would be interesting.
Yeah, Sean,
it would be.
Air Force, if there was a 12-team playoff, was playing for a shot at being in that playoff, by the way.
Yeah.
If they'd won the Mountain West and they were ranked in Tulane, they would have been in.
Right, they would have been in.
New Year's Day Bowl.
Liberty, I don't think James Madison even qualifies, right?
By the way, no, James Madison actually, that's a great point. I meant to bring this up earlier in the show, and I didn't. They're undefeated yet, 8-0, 9-0 maybe. They won't even rank him in the playoff.
No.
They're ineligible for postseason play because you have to sit out 2 years once you join FBS Division I.
But aren't they putting a letter in to appeal?
They
for
are
bowl eligibility.
They have reached out to the NCAA to ask them to waive that, and I don't. The NCAA moves like a caterpillar.
Yeah. All right, so this would be the projected.
By the way, it is a stupid rule.
Yeah, it is a stupid rule. All right, the projected 12-team playoff. It happened this year. Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Florida State 3, and Washington 4. This assumes Ohio State wins. This is how they were projected conference winners. Obviously, Oregon, Tulane's ranked 12th, but they would have a home game against Michigan because they are the lowest. They get it, and then Texas, Texas and Tulane would be the others. So that's your 6 conference winners, right? Yeah.
Right.
So Oregon would play Louisville, Texas would play Penn State, Alabama would play Ole Miss in a rematch, and the winner would play Georgia.
And none of those teams would have 3 losses going in, John.
No.
Not a one.
Not a one.
Most likely. I mean, but
maybe, like I said, maybe Ole Miss or Penn State. Maybe. But I don't even know if they get in.
But to me, you got 2 lost teams right now that will move into them if they don't lose the rest of the way out.
Right, exactly.
At least grant you this. The playoff expansion is pointless because it's only going to be the SEC and Ohio State winning Addies.
We'll see. Got to play the games.
I'll say this. Very similar to the basketball tournament. If you're going to have big upsets, it's going to
happen in the first round.
They're going to happen early. Yes.
And we saw it. And let's be honest. Did anybody see Tulane beating USC last year?
I don't. The Cotton Bowl, right? I don't remember. I predicted. I doubt. I'm sure I picked USC to win that game. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So I mean, it can happen. We've seen it.
By the way, this Tulane team's only lost to Ole Miss, who's number 9 in the country.
And that was what?
Without their starting quarterback.
Yeah, so that was early in the season.
Yes, without their starting quarterback. It's a good football team.
It's a good football team. It's a very good football team.
I've kept you a lot longer than I thought.
That's all right. Don't worry. I didn't have to do anything else tonight, so it's okay.
So since I'll keep you for a few more minutes, let's do a couple picks for this week.
All right, let's do it.
We'll go down the.
But it was good conversation tonight.
Absolutely. Anytime John DeLong's that involved, it's always good. And we got Sean. I think Sean's been with us once or twice before. You knew Tulane could put up points, but yeah, he definitely didn't think they'd beat USC for sure.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people had Tulane beating USC.
I'm glad you're enjoying the show. Hope you'll. Sean, I think is with. Is Sean on? Are you on Let's Talk Sports, Sean, or not? I got so many guys that come and go, and then they use different monikers, and I don't know.
Right. All right. So what are we looking at this week?
Let's go down this real quick. Miami, Florida State. I think Florida State wins this game.
Game easy. That game used to mean something. Doesn't mean anything anymore.
Yeah, agreed. Miami's kind of
Miami's season turned when they didn't take the knee, lost to Georgia Tech, and then just went sideways.
This college football season in my mind. Michigan, Penn State, probably the game of the day.
Yeah,
I'm going to take. You know what? I can't pick James Franklin. I'm sorry. I'll pick them.
I'm picking Michigan to win.
4.5. I'll take Michigan to win the game. And I think they'll win by a field goal, and Penn State covers. Kentucky, Alabama. Kentucky doing their usual late season swoon here. Alabama's playing.
Bama win.
Should be easy. Kansas and Texas Tech. Kansas has played some good football.
Kansas at home.
Without their starting quarterback much of the year. I like Kansas here. Texas Tech, a big disappointment in a lot of people's eyes this year. Tulane and Tulsa. Tulane had tough. I think Tulane was looking ahead to some, the postseason here last week at East Carolina. Got away with a 3-point win, but I like Tulane here.
Arizona.
Arizona's been better at home. It's a lot of points, by the way. 10.5 to give up on the road, but I'm going to take Arizona to win the game.
And the Colorado might cover here, but I like the Wildcats to win.
Kansas State hosting Baylor. Kansas State's playing good football right now after losing to a couple ranked opponents early in the year.
I think Kansas State gets Baylor. Baylor's not the same team it was.
Yeah, Baylor's had a pretty tough year. Utah going to Washington, trying to keep the momentum they built back up last week.
Utah covers, but Huskies win.
Agreed. Tennessee at Missouri. I like the over in this game.
I like the over in this game too.
58.5. I think that's a gift. Bet the over.
Missouri's such a better team at home than they are on the road. I'll take the Tigers at home.
I'll take the Tigers at home too. Oklahoma State at UCF. UCF.
How about them Cowboys?
They got their first Big 12 win last week, or because they beat Cincinnati. One of them had to get their first Big 12 win. But I like Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy, one of my favorite coaches, still rocking the mullet now and again. Rutgers at Iowa.
This is going to be a fun game.
Rutgers better than you think. They played Ohio State tough last week. The final score was 20 or 19, I guess. But Rutgers was ahead and about to go ahead by
2 scores,
9 or 10 points when they turned the ball over and had a touchdown run.
And then everything just went off the rails.
So this game could be a 0-0 tie and be played until Sunday sometime.
I think Rutgers can win this game.
Oregon State hosts Stanford. Stanford's played a little better. They've been tougher than we thought.
I think Oregon State's going to win this game.
Oregon State had a little blip, but I think they're back on track. Ole Miss at Georgia.
Georgia all day, all night.
Lane
Kiffin can't prove he can win a big game.
Lane Kiffin looking for that signature win still.
Not going to happen this week.
West Virginia, who got off to a decent start, has slumped a little bit. Had Oklahoma, who has slumped a lot the last couple of weeks.
I like Oklahoma here.
I think Oklahoma bounces back in a big way here. Ohio State, Michigan State.
Ohio State all day.
Texas at TCU. TCU has really shown their color. We found out this wasn't such a great win for Colorado in week 1.
No, it was not.
Texas should win this game easily.
Yes, they should.
Florida at LSU. This is an interesting game. LSU 13.5. I think Florida covers this game, but I think LSU will win.
Yeah, LSU wins for me.
Might be another over bet, actually. Duke at suddenly North Carolina. Every time you get excited and say, this North Carolina's finally got a good team, they hit the top 10 and they lose horrible games in a row.
Is Riley Leonard playing for Duke?
I think it's up in the air.
Up in the air. If he plays, I would take Duke. I think North Carolina figures out a way to get it done at home, though.
Yeah, I would say they need to win this game too.
Yeah, they need to win this game.
USC is again.
Oregon's putting at least 60 up.
Yeah, this is going to be the over. This is 74, by the way.
I'm taking the over big time.
USC will get demolished, I think, by Oregon here.
Absolutely, 100%.
We got a couple. Let me see what we got here real quick. I got a bunch. Hold on. Jesus, Sean, what you got here? Oh, my God, we missed a lot.
Shit.
Holy moly. Out of here. They checked. I thought we've seen you here before, Sean. John's got, but the first round is non-conference champs. I'm not going to talk about the 12-team playoff anymore. Arizona. I'm picking Penn State because I don't condone cheating, and I love giraffes.
Yeah.
Surprise there. Will Howard had 4 touchdowns last week. I got Kansas State. Will Howard played really good football for Kansas State for sure. Good call there, Sean. Give me Missouri and Cody Schrader. Oak State, 5 in a row. Yeah, Oklahoma State's playing as good as anybody in the country right now. Ali Gordon for the Heisman. Rutgers 6-3.
Nobody saw that coming.
Greg Schiano's done a really good job here. He just will never, and Rutgers will never beat the best teams in the Big Ten. Ever.
No, but Greg Schiano can never win a big game when it matters either.
Right. But that doesn't mean Rutgers isn't having a good year. They are.
No, but they're having a great year.
Yep. That was a shame. That would have been a big win for them last week. That's for sure. Big game, but I got West Virginia.
Yeah, and then they would have lost this week too.
Tar Heels. Our defense struggles. I'm not sure who Sean's rooting for here. Leonard is out, he says, for sure. If Leonard was in, he'd say it'd be a shootout. I don't disagree. I mean,
I don't disagree either.
Drake May. It's a shame Drake May is saddled with that defense that North Carolina can't seem to ever fix. So
nope.
What else, Jim? Give us a closing thought before I let you go.
Should be another fun Saturday.
God, it's been a lot of good Saturdays.
I will tell you this. I've been talking to a lot more people. They're loving Saturday more than they're loving Sunday right now.
I've been saying it all year. I said it since that Oregon-Washington game. That's why Saturdays are better than Sundays. And
absolutely
game like that. Every Saturday.
Yep. Every Saturday.
And I love the NFL, but it's just you don't feel the same energy level.
No.
In the stadiums, even the pregame shows. I mean, the energy's there, right? So,
I love the energy. Love the energy.
All pregame shows. I can't watch them. I'll watch game day for 3 hours. I can't be disturbed. Leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Jim, thanks for coming on. What do you got going on this weekend? Tell me again.
I'm in Toronto this weekend. Hockey Hall of Fame induction ceremony Monday. Got the Legends Classic on Sunday. Got a couple of Leaf games. Should be a good time.
Congratulations on covering that Hall of Fame inductions. That ought to
should be good. Yeah, she's going to be a fun time.
Did you want to try to come on Sunday or?
Yeah, shoot me a text. I'll make it work. Stuff doesn't really get underway till the afternoon, so I should be free in the morning.
The inductions and stuff and a little on Saturday.
Little hockey talk because, there's a mess in the province of Alberta right now, so.
Oh, there's a couple messes in the NHL we'll get into.
Sharks
win a game.
Sharks finally won a game.
Yeah, that's right. They did win a game. That's right.
They finally won a game.
All my hockey notes are irrelevant now. I guess not.
That's not all of them.
All right, so we'll talk. I'll shoot you a note Saturday and see what you got going on.
Sounds good, buddy.
All right, thanks, Jim.
All right, always a pleasure. Take care.
Yes, sir. The great Jim Beringer from Let's Talk Sports and FullPressHockey.com. Guys, check his stuff out on Let's Talk Sports. He does a lot of great stuff with college football, and he's on some of the other guys' shows. And definitely, if you don't follow FullPressHockey.com, do so. Jim writes some great articles. He has some good podcasts. A lot of fun if you're a hockey fan. Jim does some good stuff. We love having him on. Let's just go. We're going to go around, and I want to see what other news we got going on. Any topics you guys want to bring up in our last 16 minutes here? Before we have to sign off. I'll be on, by the way, at 8:30, I'll be on with Robert Butler for a bit on Sports Scopes to talk a little about Josh McDaniels firing, and he'll probably make me talk about the Patriot mess as well. We did talk a little bit about James Madison Sean brought them up, and Jim talked about the fact that they have put in an appeal, if you will, to the NCAA to potentially waive that rule. That's stupid. It's stupidest rule. In a league full of stupid rules, the NCAA does some stupid stuff, but making teams ineligible for 2 years when they come into the top level is just ridiculous in my mind. James Madison would potentially be playing for a New Year's Day bowl bid here in this last few weeks if they were eligible. So it's not. I hope they win this, but the NCAA doesn't move fast enough for that to happen. We know that. We've talked a lot about Jim Harbaugh. We won't get into that anymore tonight. Bowers, by the way, has been running again at practice. Hopefully, Georgia hopes to get him back here in the next few weeks, certainly before they need him in the SEC championship game. I'm not sure. Ole Miss is playing some really good football. If this game were in Oxford, I would think they might have a shot. But Kirby Smart, as much as I like Lane Kiffin is not in the same class as Kirby Smart. It just is not. NC State's quarterback Morris, he's out for the year. LSU's Jalen Daniels expects to return to practice. He got banged up in this game last week against Alabama and has missed some time this week. Again, any topics you guys want to bring up? If not, I'm going to go around the conferences just a little bit to see what's going on and where we're shaping up as far as conference championships and the like. We'll go through this fairly quickly. EAC, again, underrated conference. You've got both Tulane and SMU, and UTSA, who I had picked as a dark horse to win this in the beginning, all 5-0. Top two teams here will get into the championship game. Tulane ranked in the top 25 for the college football playoff, and right now is in the driver's seat for that New Year's Day bowl game. And if this were the 12-team playoff, they would be looking at one of those automatic bids. They've won 7 in a row. And remember, the only loss is to number 9 Ole Miss without their starting quarterback. Dogs don't really need Bowers. Have you seen what Oscar Delp is doing? He is doing well, but I'm going to tell you, he's not Brock Bowers when Brock Bowers is healthy. Brock Bowers is really, really good. He's going to play on Sundays for a long, long time. The MAC conference is shaping up tonight, but games yesterday as well. I don't know. I've had a hard time getting into those games, but who's playing tonight, by the way? Let's take a quick look at that, I guess. Oops, wrong one. So we probably had a game last night, right, Sean? Let's get into FBS 1 scores. So tonight we got Miami of Ohio beating Akron 10-0. Bowling Green 21-6 over Kent State, and Toledo's having a really good year. 5-0 in the MAC, 21-0 over Eastern Michigan. And last night you had Ball State beat Northern Illinois. Western Michigan beat Central Michigan, and Buffalo loses to Ohio. I watched a little of that game last night before I had to put my old head to bed. 3 games last night. Yes, 3 games tonight. Good stuff. Let's go around these conferences again. Where was I? Only got through one. The ACC, Florida State 7-0. It's going to be a race to see who plays them. I think Louisville's probably a shoe in here, 5-1 right now. Georgia Tech has played better. Duke without Leonard, probably not going to have a chance. I think Louisville stays with 1 loss, gets to that championship game, and Florida State wins to get one of the playoff berths. The Big 12 still kind of wide open. Again, Texas and Oklahoma State, I think, will win out, and I think they will play in that championship game. Kansas still with a shot. Oklahoma, I don't think they got a shot because of the losses that they have to Kansas and Oklahoma State ahead of them. And also that puts them virtually 2 games behind both of them, or at least one of them. Really, that's all you got a shot at. The Big Ten, obviously Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State. I think the winner of Penn State, Michigan is out. And then you got the big Michigan-Ohio State game. if you have a 3-way tie, I'm not sure how it's going to be decided who gets to play in the championship game and go kill most likely Iowa in that championship game. Iowa can't get out of its own way. As we talked about, Brian Ferentz will not be back as the offensive coordinator next year. That's already been announced. Conference USA, Liberty 7-0 in the conference, 9-0, excuse me. Overall, still with a shot at potentially a Newsday Bowl game. They'll probably play either New Mexico State or Jacksonville in their championship game. The Independents, we won't talk about. The Mid-American Conference, which Sean just brought up, Miami of Ohio, will likely play Toledo. I would say Miami of Ohio is going to hold on and play Toledo in this championship game. The Mountain West, again, I keep saying it's an underrated conference. Air Force, I really, really liked. I love Calhoun, one of the best, most consistent coaches, I think, in the country. Very tough loss to Army last week. Kudos to Jeff Monken and his team. That's a big win to go to Colorado and win. Going away, Army, we're having a tough year as they try to change their offenses a bit. But kudos to Army for knocking off Air Force. But Air Force still in the driver's seat here in the Mountain West. Probably going to be Air Force against either UNLV or Fresno State in the championship game there. The Pac-12, Washington and Oregon headed for on a collision course for a rematch. I don't think there's anything that can stop that now. USC is going to have losses to both of them. That'll give them 3 losses. Arizona could sneak up there if one of those, if say Oregon falters. I don't see Washington State losing 2 games, and I'm not sure I see Oregon losing 1. If Oregon loses 1, opens the door for somebody like Arizona or Oregon State to slide into that potential second slot for the championship game. SEC, as we said, Georgia's already home free for the SEC championship game from the East and the West. Alabama, I think, is home free as well, because unless they lose 2 games, which they're not going to, they've virtually got a 2-game lead over Mississippi because they've got 1 loss against none in the conference, but they've got a win in hand over Ole Miss. So this looks like Alabama and Georgia without any complications. James Madison ineligible to play in their postseason, so it's either going to be Coastal Carolina or Georgia State, or even maybe Appalachian State playing most likely Troy in the final of the Sun Belt Conference. So there's a look around the league a little bit. Let's see what kind of comments we still have. Those losses for UNC knocked them out. Oh, for sure. This has been North Carolina's MO. Anytime they're good, they can't get out of their own way. They lose to Georgia Tech. Who'd they lose to? Who'd they lose to the last 2 weeks? I mean, there's no way this team with a talent on it and Drake May at quarterback should be losing to Virginia, who's the worst team in the ACC. Although Miami didn't play very well against them either. And Georgia Tech, who's playing better. They did come back with a huge win against Campbell last week, so congratulations for that. But they're going to finish up with Duke, Clemson, and NC State. This team's liable to have 4 losses after being number 10 in the country 2 weeks ago. Sean, you can't lose to UVA and Georgia Tech and still be considered a dominant team. No, they're not. I mean, that's the problem with it. Again, NC State or NC in football has been in this situation, I mean, a handful of times, say 4 or 5 times in my lifetime. I'm 63 years old. And every time they've been in this situation, they have found a way to shoot themselves in the foot. That's under Mac Brown previously. That's under, who's the old Miami coach? Damn it. Isn't that terrible? There's my 63-year-old mind talking. So anyway, a few head coaches have had him in a position to do this. So fail. What else we got going on this week? We talked about USC. That's a big move, by the way. Lincoln Riley, as Jim said, 8 weeks too late firing Alex Grinch. Should have never brought him with him from Oklahoma, in my mind. They never had a good defense. Why he brought him with him, and he's probably, again, he did turn around USC's fortunes from where they were with Helton, but the defense has just been so bad. There's very few defenses in the country this bad. Sean, yeah, this is every year for me. So you're a Carolina. I've been trying to figure out if you're a Carolina fan or an Arizona fan. So I'm going to assume now you're a North Carolina fan. Your dad went there. Every couple of years we do this, and at least we aren't considered a basketball school. Just listen, Mac Brown coming back there, raised the profile. The campus is alive. My stepson did his postgraduate, his doctorate work at North Carolina, and it's a crazy place, like every other college campus on a Saturday. And it's a shame that every year they just can't get out of their own way. They lose to teams they shouldn't lose to after beating teams that maybe they shouldn't beat. Tar Heels fan in college. Washington is your team in the pros, formerly known as the Redskins, who defeated my Patriots this past week and maybe put one of the final nails in Coach Belichick's coffin. That's a topic for the Sunday Stream of Consciousness show. Anyway, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. I want to thank everybody and thank Jim Beringer for coming in. Sean, John DeLong, Rick Sherlock, Dave Guyette, whoever I missed with comments. Great job again, as always. You guys help drive my shows, and I love that, as you know. Can't seem to get to my music here. DDH, thumbs up, buddy. Good to have you watching from above. Guys, keep an eye out for the Are You Serious show with the Mad New Yorker on Friday. I'll be on with Mac and Jack Friday morning before that. I'm going on with Robert Butler on Sportscope right after I sign off here. And we'll be back Sunday with the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. And Friday afternoon, you can catch us with the Major League Baseball update. All of those on TGI Sports Talk, on Northeast Streaming Sports, on Let's Talk Sports, and other places as well. Don't forget to download the Roku app for Northeast Streaming Sports. Lots of good shows on there. And guys, you could do worse than to watch that all day long. So great to have you with us. Sean's going to watch the Subway show now. And Sunday. All right, guys. Keith Engel here for TGI Sports Talks College Football Huddle. You guys have a great week. We'll see you again. You can watch this on Saturday at 9 on Roku, Northeast Streaming Sports. Have a great night.